Today, we're learning about interpreting graphs from Unit 7, Lesson 3 in your math textbook. Let's get into it. First, let's talk about types of graphs. When we look at data, there are different ways to show it visually. Today, we're going to focus on two important types of graphs. The first one is scatter plots, or a series of points. A scatter plot shows individual data points plotted on a graph. These points are not connected by lines. Scatter plots are great for showing discrete data. Discrete data is information that can usually be counted and has clear gaps between values. For example, the number of students in a classroom, the number of pets someone has, or the number of books you read in a month. You can't have 3.5 students or 2.75 pets. These are whole number values with gaps between them. The second type we're going to look at are line graphs. A line graph shows points that are connected by line segments. Line graphs are perfect for showing continuous data. Continuous data can take any value within a range and can be measured rather than counted. Examples include height, temperature, or time. With continuous data, you can have values like 5.5 inches or 98.6 degrees. There are no gaps, and you can have fractional or decimal values. Here's an example of a scatter plot discrete data. Imagine we collected data on how many books each student in our class read last month. Each dot on our scatter plot would represent one student and how many books they read. The dots wouldn't be connected because each student's reading amount is separate and distinct from others. An example of a line graph that shows continuous data. When we look at the growth of plants over several weeks, a line graph works perfectly. We might measure the height of a plant each week for 10 weeks. We plot these measurements as points on our graph and then connect them with line segments. The line between points shows us that the plant was growing continuously, even though we only measured at specific times. For example, if a plant was 10 centimeters tall in week 3 and 15 centimeters tall in week 4, the line between these points helps us estimate that it might have been about 12.5 centimeters tall halfway through that week. Here's your first practice question. This is on Ethan's peach basket picking. Look at this graph showing how many baskets of peaches Ethan picked each day of the week. And then I want you to interpret the data and answer these questions. How many peach baskets did Ethan pick on Monday? On which day did Ethan pick the most peach baskets? And finally, how many peach baskets did Ethan pick in total? Pause the video and try to answer these questions on your own. All right, welcome back. Here are your answers to practice question number 1. Ethan picked 6 peach baskets on Monday. He picked the most peach baskets on Thursday. And finally, the total number of baskets that he picked when we added up all of the daily amounts were 52 baskets in total. All right, here is practice question 2, Carson's plant growth. Now, look at this line graph showing the height of Carson's plants over time. The horizontal axis shows time in weeks. The vertical axis shows height in centimeters. I need you to interpret this graph and answer these questions. What does this line graph show? About how tall were Carson's plants at 8 weeks? And finally, what can you interpret from this graph? Pause the video and try to answer these questions on your own. All right, welcome back. Here are your answers to practice question 2. Number 1. This line graph shows how the height of Carson's plants changed over time in weeks. Question number 2. At 8 weeks, Carson's plants were about 55 centimeters tall. And the largest amount of growth occurred between weeks 6 and 8. When interpreting graphs, always look carefully at what the axes represent, the scale used on each axis, and whether the data is discrete or continuous, any patterns or trends in the data. Thanks for watching and listening to this lesson on interpreting graphs. Until next time, keep practicing your graph interpretation skills.